Hey, East Alabama and West Georgia, back at the New Hope Volunteer Fire Department Station number 8, just off of Highway 48 on County Road 56 in Randolph County. If you're coming to join us today, really easy to find. All you got to do is go to Wedowee and hook a right if you're coming from the south, and go out Highway 48, turn right on 56, and you'll see us down there on the left. If you're coming from Woodland, just go in the opposite direction. Come out 48 from Woodland toward Wedowee, take a left on 56, and you'll see us down there on the left. Been a fantastic weather day so far here at the New Hope Volunteer Fire Department turkey shoot. As you can see by the Southern Union State Community College Live Doppler HD radar, we're showing a few showers up in Carroll County, around Carrollton, stretching back down through central Heard County to a point just to the southeast of Franklin, and then down into extreme northern Troup County. A few showers continue there. Other than that, we're pretty much clear as far as rain is concerned. Maybe a few scattered showers over in Talladega County there north of east of Childersburg, and a few showers around Birmingham Metro, but really not a whole lot happening across East Alabama and West Georgia other than cloud coverage, a nice little breeze, which has made this very bearable here today. It certainly hasn't been the hot, humid conditions that we have seen over the last several weeks across East Alabama and West Georgia. A good friend of mine has joined us today, and we're going to talk about weather. We're going to talk about, we're going to probably talk about emergency management. We may talk about some football. We may talk about a little bit of anything. If you were on our last break, we had Taylor on. I told you Mr. Sunshine had finally gotten here. This is the big sun that we're talking about here. Folks, this is Dana Barker. Dana joins us today. He is a staff meteorologist down at WTVM in Columbus. He is a meteorologist. From a technical standpoint, knows a whole lot more about this than I do. And Dana and I have been talking back and forth for several months now about looking at some possibilities and some ways maybe that Dana can start joining us here on Dr. Don's Weather and become part of our program. They got some big flies up here, up here in New Hope. I mean, we took some of them back to the hotel with us last night too. But anyway, so Dana has joined us, and we're going to kind of let him tell us about himself and kind of get to know him a little bit better today. I think this is a great opportunity for that to happen, and maybe we'll start doing some things in the future with Dana. You may see his face some along with mine, and if I get in a bad situation where I have to go take care of my grocery buying job, that puts meat on the table, hey, it may be him you're looking at moving forward. So great to have you here with us. I'm glad to finally, we've talked on the phone and through social media a good bit, but I'm happy for us to finally get to meet face-to-face and get to know one another. And welcome to our broadcast today.
Yeah, thank you, Don. Let me I guess a little bit about me first, kind of my love for weather. I was one of those guys since I was a little kid. I've had a love for weather since I was 3, 4, 5 years old.
Let me ask you this question now, because I bet you can't top this. So when you were like 13 years old, did you have a paper map of the state of Alabama taped up on, you remember the wooden sliding closet doors in your bedroom?
Yep.
Did you have a state of Alabama map taped up on that door with those little push pins, and every time the National Weather Service would issue a weather statement, you would peg it each county that went under some type of watch or warning? Because I did. That's how I got started in this business.
That and my fourth grade report, I would have the county shaded, and I would give a little report. There was a severe thunderstorm warning in Muskogee County yesterday, and I would go to my class and do that whenever we had a little play and they needed somebody doing weather. It was me. I just had a love for it, and I just had a fascination with it. I grew up in New Jersey, but I lost all that when I was 3 years old. I grew up in Columbus, really, since age 3 onward. Now I live in Auburn with my wife and son. She's over there. She's a school teacher in the Auburn system. So I love the area. I love this area as well, and we're going to talk about that when we talk about football and things like that. But kind of my background, when I was in high school, I wanted to go to Florida State. That was a big school for meteorology, and my great-uncle lived down there close to Tallahassee. I was going to stay down there. Grand plan. And then he unfortunately passed away when I was a sophomore in high school. So I'm like, okay, a little bit of a derailment. And then I realized later on when I was in my 20s that Mississippi State had an online program in meteorology. It's one of the best in the country. I think the stat is about 1/3 of the people right now that are on the air in broadcast meteorology all across the country went through this program. So Started that, got the degree. Then I got a little bit of a wild hair. Went back for my master's degree, so I've got a master's in meteorology from Mississippi State. Did all that online. Went to Starkville a couple of times, just present some cool things, some cool project type stuff. And then I saw a TV station, WLTZ in Columbus. If you guys are familiar with that, of course, down south, they actually had canned weather from, I think it was from Davenport, Iowa. And guys were pronouncing this up, it'd be like wee-to-wee, and, they wouldn't know.
Muskogee.
Yeah, Muskegee, and, you forget Eufaula, forget Opelika, things like that. So I went to the station GM, and I said, hey, let me see what I can do for you, at least digitally. This is 2012. Let me see what I can do for you, at least from a digital standpoint here. And it kind of grew into, hey, we're going to bring this stuff in-house and see if we can help out. So I started as a fill-in in the mornings, and it kind of grew from there. They started a weekend program, so I became the weekend meteorologist, and that was kind of my foot in the door for doing broadcast meteorology. And I've loved doing it ever since. We talked a little bit before the break. Your watershed moment, you said, your big moment was March 25th, 2021 here. Mine was March 3rd, 2019. Yep. We were on the air for that Beauregard tornado, and never in my, I hesitate now talking about it. Never in my worst nightmare was I looking at that radar that day and thinking 23 souls would have lost their lives. So every day after that, I tried to do things to prevent that from happening ever again. The way I talk, the way I deliver the forecast, the way I deliver critical information with severe weather. So I do it. James Spann, we both talked about him. He calls it servant's heart, and that's what I do. It's not about the paycheck to me. It's about helping out. It's about these people that walked up to us, during the breaks and said hello. It's about helping people out, keeping them safe, keeping them informed, and that's really the drive why I do it. Because I have a grocery making job too over at Auburn University. I work at the university full time in the IT department, so I'm good there. Weather is my passion, my hobby. So I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy bringing the weather to people and keeping them safe in severe weather and things like that too.
Well, you're singing my song because that's exactly why I'm in this. I got into radio right out of high school. Grew up in Prattville, Alabama. That's where I was born and raised. Worked for a little station over there. It was an AM station, 5,000-watt station called Pixie, WPXC. Never forget it as long as I live. Got a big break in the late 70s, early 80s, and went to work for WLWI in Montgomery when Rhubarb Jones, Dr. Sam, Shed Johnson, that whole Greg Mazingo, that whole bunch was in Montgomery. At that time, probably the best country radio station in the United States of America. I mean, they had a great deal there. Worked part-time for them. And I remember, and I know a lot of folks around here remember Rhubarb. We lost him several years ago, but when he got ready to leave Montgomery to go to Atlanta, he took a big gig up there. He and I were having a conversation. It was his going away party, as a matter of fact. And I asked him. I was in my early 20s at that time, and I said, if you could give me one piece of advice, because Ruby was on top of the world at that time. I said, what would be your suggestion? And he said, find a niche. Find something that you are good at, that you don't have to have the best voice in the world. And that time, trust me, it was pretty bad. I was eat up with lower Alabama slang. And I had some of it back now, but I've worked on that over the years. But he told me, he said, find something that you can do well that nobody else around you can. And I'm like you. Have always been fascinated with weather. And so that was my thing. And he used to pick at me. He used to say, I worked overnights and I would fill in for folks who were on vacation or whatever. And he used to say, that strength, boy, if it comes a raindrop in Moose Jaw, Alaska, he's going to talk about it in Montgomery, Alabama. That's what he's going to do. And he was right. I loved it so much. If there was a remote chance at all a storm in Tupelo, Mississippi was going to make it to Montgomery, Alabama, I was talking about it. Drove the program director crazy. But anyway, I love it too. And so, and March 25th of 2021 was that day for me. You were talking about the Beauregard tornado. And I can tell you a little something about that too in just a minute. But that was one of those days where my grocery buying job I tell everybody that to have multiple ways of receiving severe weather information, because there's always that chance I can't be there, and I don't. Number one, I'm not a meteorologist. I bring you a message. I relay what the National Weather Service is putting out there. I maybe put my opinion and my spin on it every now and then from years of experience. But I give that message. I bring that message to folks and try to put it in a way that's easy to understand, so that folks understand exactly what's going on with the weather. That's been going on since the beginning of time, and guess what? It's going to be going on when we all gone, too. Yep. We're going to have weather. But on that day, March 25th, my daytime job, if it could have ever interfered with me being on air, it was going to be that day. I was put in charge of running a mass vaccination site in Habersham County, Georgia, through my daytime job. And like 115, 120 people on site working there. We had storms over there in Georgia that day. We were running way behind. We had too many shots that we had drawn. We were having to find arms to put the shots in. It was just one of those days, if it could go wrong, it went wrong. And I didn't think I'd even make it home to probably midnight that night. And I was texting, telling everybody the storms were forming, but I probably wasn't going to be able to go live. Finally got to leave, drove home, about a 35-minute drive from the site, and about the time I turned on my driveway to go up the side of the mountain to my house is when the storm, the first tornado warning came from that particular cell as it moved out of Chilton County into western Coosa County. It went tornadic, and then it faded out, and then it came back again once it got over into Coosa County near Rockford. That whole radar loop is just engraved in my brain. I don't think I'll ever forget it. And it was moving in that general direction, right, straight toward northern Tallapoosa, southeastern Clay, southwestern Randolph. And so I was really, really tuned in on that thing, and it happened. It's the one thing that you and I both love to warn people about, but we really, I know I can speak for myself, in the back of my mind, hope that we get those near misses. We don't ever actually get one that actually causes death and destruction. I know you went through it in the Beauregard tornado. Fortunately, we didn't lose any lives in the Corinth tornado in Randolph County, but there was a good bit of damage. And my son's house was in the path of that storm. He took a lot of damage. So that one hit really close to me. And I actually, while I was live on that broadcast, I was telling producer Tracy to text our children to make sure they were, it was that close to home, folks. It really was. So I understand what you're saying. And, you do all of this, and I always said this growing up in radio and everything I've always done. If I can ever help, I'm not saving lives. The good Lord's saving lives. They use our talent and put us in a place where we can give information that saves lives, but that's because of Him. It's not because of anything you or I do. But I've always said that if I can leave this world at least thinking that maybe I helped save one life, then and everything was all well worth it. And so anything that comes now is icing on the cake, because I think that's already happened, probably in both of our cases.
I agree. I do think that. I've heard those stories in Beauregard too. And to keep not only was there a tornado in Beauregard that day, but then there was another strong one down near Eufaula. Yeah. And, of course, the Columbus market goes down all the way down to Cuthbert, Georgia, Eufaula, Alabama, so we had to keep going. Miller Robson, he's in Montana now. He was alongside me. I wouldn't have anybody else beside Miller and I. We both grew up in Columbus. Yeah. We both know, we have that personal touch. You're entwined in Randolph County, so you know how it is here. So, unlike somebody who comes from Virginia or somewhere else in the country, and this is a stepping stone for them to be in Columbus, then it's just a pit stop on the way to a bigger market. Right. It's not for us. It's a final destination for me. This whole area, including this area too that I'm in right now. But being that and just being that personal, Miller actually broke down once we heard of fatalities, and I don't know how I bottled it in, but I kept on going through the Eufaula tornado. That was a strong one too. That one in Eufaula was, I think, as strong as the one that went through southern Randolph was. Went through there before it became an EF4 in Noonan. and there was no loss of life there. And the Beauregard tornado hit Talbotton, Georgia, and it was an EF3, and it decimated some places, and there was no fatalities there either. So I'm thinking, hoping that once we escalated what we were saying, once we, you can just see the look on our faces how serious we were. Hopefully, like you said, hopefully that helped out, and hopefully that, like I said, if we could help save one life, I think everything is worth it, and that's bigger than any paycheck, bigger than any dollars and cents I could get. Knowing that we helped do that, and I think that was validated that day. And I'll tell you this too. I had kind of a weird sense of excitement before March 3rd when that stuff happened. I'm like, oh, yeah, I get to go and do severe weather coverage. But after that, no more. Yeah. I mean, now I have a duty, and it's like walking into a duty to do this. It's like you said, it's like a calling. It really is like a calling to do this and to help people out. And being in events like this, events where you're boots on the ground, seeing the people, it's different being sterilized in a newsroom in Columbus, Georgia, like I am, versus this. You're putting faces on the people that you're helping out, and that really means a lot. And I wish there's some meteorologists, I think, that need this little dose of humbling here, knowing that these are the people that you're helping out. These are the people that are hanging on your every word when there's a tornado coming, bearing down on you. They need to know what to do. And I really think giving that message across and seeing the people and being out there not only improves the relationships you have to see what you're helping, but the two-way communication as well. Being able to talk to them and network out and say, hey, we're here to help and we're here to fill a gap, especially a big gap here like we were talking about.
Absolutely, and it's so humbling to me, and I'm just awestruck every time I get to come out into the community and talk to people face to face, and and they're standing there telling me that that they're hanging every move they make on what I'm telling them and what I'm seeing, and golly, man, you stop and think about that. That these people are literally putting their lives in your hand, and I'm like you. I kind of look at things a little different now since I went through the on-air tornado that moved directly over my children's house and actually did some damage. And not just there, it's all across Randolph County. I mean, everybody that lives in this county, when I was here, there were not many people I didn't know, and they all knew me, being on radio and everything. So, that was an eye-opening experience, and I think everything I've gone throughout my career leading up to that day was to get me to a point to where I could make it through something like that, because that was tough. As you're describing, I know you can relate. There are not many people you can sit down and have this conversation with that can relate to what you're saying. It's a totally different world when you're talking about something that's outside of your coverage area, because you don't have that personal connection really. Yep. But then when it happens in your backyard, it puts everything into perspective in a big way. All right, so we kind of get to know one another. We both love weather. There's no question about that. And before we move on to any other topics, let me ask you, we're watching a couple of areas down in the tropics right now, as a matter of fact. The Hurricane Center picked up on one this morning, the northwest Gulf of Mexico, looking for the possibility of a disturbance there. And then we have that wave coming off the Atlantic coast. Hurricane season started June 1st, and typically by now we have something we have to deal with. Are we getting off to a slow start this year, you think?
Yeah, I do think so. Part of that reason we had the heat wave, had the hundreds, around here, was that high kind of blocking things, but that's going by the wayside next week. But also what it did was make the Gulf bathwater. Yeah. I was looking down at the temperatures yesterday, or I think a couple of days ago. In Destin, it was 90 degrees at 11 o'clock. And that's because of the Gulf. I mean, it's because you're going down there and swimming in bathwater down the Gulf of Mexico. So it is I don't want to say ticking time bomb, because that's kind of hyperbole, I think, on our part. But it's definitely, the fuel is down there. We just need that little match to light it. And I think that's not a matter of if, but when. We're going to have that down there, yep. Yeah.
So do you agree with the National Hurricane Center in their thoughts, their predictions for this year's hurricane season, that it will be as active, if not more active, than what we saw last year? And last year was pretty active.
Yeah, I think so. Just based on the global patterns, they're kind of the same as they were last year, and especially how we got off to this hot start in June. I really look at that, because if you look at some of the maps of the water temperatures across the whole Gulf, not just the coast there is a ton of fuel just waiting to be tapped into. So I do think we're going to have a pretty active season here. We can't say, Okaloosa County is going to hit you right there in Florida. We can't, of course, we can't pinpoint that. We have no skill at that, and anybody who tells you that is lying to you. I promise you that. But yeah, it definitely is going to be cause for some watching here in the next couple of weeks. And any little disturbance, like you said, we got a slight chance of one in the northwestern Gulf right now. There's one actually way off the coast of Africa that's coming on over toward the west. It's not really the peak season for that yet to go that way through the Caribbean, but still, something to watch here in the early part of the season.
Absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on that moving forward. And so our pattern next week is a little bit different, too. It's still going to be warm. I mean, it's supposed to be warm. It's that time of year here in the southeastern United States. It's going to be humid, but better chances of rain pretty much every day next week.
Yeah, I think so. Back to reality, because I think that they call it the big death high that brought all the hot weather, that goes by the wayside. So I think we're back to normal weather here, the chances for showers and storms. And, again, those just pulse up, pulse back down. A pretty cool thing I talk to people about, they're like, why don't we see tornadoes in the summer? Why don't we see the real bad weather? Think about your engine in your car. Okay, so in the summertime, there's very light winds aloft, right? So you got to have an intake and exhaust in two different places. Well, in the cool season, the storms are kind of tilted because way up above our heads, winds are just flying. So the intake and the exhaust are in two different places. So the storms can feed and they can grow and they can maintain themselves. In the summer, the winds they're about as strong on the ground as they are way aloft. So they form straight up. So they basically choke on themselves.
There's no veering.
Yeah, no veering, no nothing. So they choke on themselves and they die off. That's why you see we call it pulse. It's like a heartbeat. Goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down. But then because of all the energy and the incredible energy you get, we call those downbursts, microbursts, damaging winds. We saw a lot of that, I think, last Tuesday, Wednesday, I think. We saw a lot of instances of that throughout parts of the area here. We saw some yesterday over middle Georgia. So you got to watch out in the summertime because it's kind of a catch-22. Everybody wants to go outside in the summer, but that's when you got these storms that just happen like that, just at a snap, and they're right on you. So, the cheesy saying, if thunder roars, go indoors. So we'll live by that next week if you see some of these pop-up storms and head inside and take heed. But hopefully we can get rid of some of these dry conditions here. Not drought yet officially in this part of the world in Alabama, but over in Georgia we got some drought conditions and severe drought over on the coast here. So hopefully it doesn't percolate over here west toward Alabama. Hopefully, with fingers crossed, we get some more moisture in here.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And you're confirming exactly what I'm seeing as well as we move into next week. Let's talk a little bit about some other stuff. I think you might be a little interested in that game of football.
Yeah, a little bit, and this is kind of a segue to how I met you and how I learned about Dr. Don. So I'm at Hanley High School 2 years ago, and I'm the referee, and there's a storm coming. And I'm up there talking to the game ops people, and, they're like, well, we need to halt the game. There's lightning around. And they had a computer up, and they had Dr. Don. I'm like, who's Dr. Don? Who's this Dr. Don? I had no idea you were. A few years ago, I'm like, what are you watching? So I'm looking, and, it's basically this forecast. It's basically this kind of, contraption here. It's this kind of a presentation. I'm like, man, this is awesome. I started watching it for a few minutes, and then I realized I got a game to go officiate. But I went down to my crew, and one Walter Graben was on my crew, and I'm like, they're looking at this thing called Dr. Don. What's that? And Walter Graben is actually related to Don. And he's like, oh, that's Don's Strength. And he told me all about you, and basically the story you just told me and the story you have told me. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. And, there is a niche to fill in here. And back to football, I'm actually the president of our high school officiating association in Auburn, Opelika. And we contract out the different schools. We have Hanley and Wadley. That's our two schools we do, and I love coming up here. Randolph County to me from Auburn is far enough where it feels like you're going out of town, but close enough where it doesn't, and it's different. The people are great. It feels like you're somewhere else. You're not really close to Auburn, Opelika, which is a good thing. I'm saying that. I promise you I'm saying that in a good way because I love working up here. I love the country. It's beautiful up here. So I like making trips up here. And Hanley treats you good. Larry Strain's a heck of a guy. Shannon Motley over at Wadley, he's got a great program going. They made it to the Super 7 last year. So there's some good football up here in Randolph County too. So we enjoy coming up here. We enjoy all our trips up here. So that's really how I met Dr. Don, and that's really how I got started seeing what you're doing up here, and maybe segue a little bit to, I know we're talking about football, but there is a niche to fill here because I don't think somebody sitting in a suit, and no offense to anybody in Atlanta, but I don't think anybody sitting in a suit on Peachtree Street in Atlanta gives a rip about somebody in Newell, Alabama, or Wedowee, or anywhere like that. And it's unfortunate that we're in the Atlanta DMA right now. Cleburne County as well. I'd love to pull us into Columbus, but I think Northern Chambers County people down there near Fredonia, they do business with people in Roanoke, but if you go up toward the Cleburne line, you really can't do that with Columbus. I wish it'd be in the Birmingham market. I think, Span and them would love on you guys as far as coverage is concerned, but I think it is very underserved here, and I think you serve a great purpose. Kind of the same thing in Auburn. It's overcovered. Yeah. Auburn is a tug-of-war between Columbus and Montgomery. You got Josh Johnson, the guys at SFA, and you got people over in Columbus. So I think maybe maybe to have one concise Auburn Opelika voice as well. I've been trying to talk to some folks about that down there as well. But and actually, we're not alone. The Atlanta market goes up to, I think, one county, North Carolina, still, right? Yes. I think Clay County, North Carolina. It's up in the Blue Ridge. So they're probably having the same trials and travails that we do right here in Randolph County, because nobody in Atlanta knows what Clay County is. I think if you're not ITP inside the perimeter, number 7 market in the country, nobody, they're not going to go wall to wall for tornado warning, and that's why March 25th, here's Don, and who knows, he might have saved lives in Heard County and Coweta County. People knowing that's coming, yeah. And when I saw that, I looked at some of the radar in Noonan. When I saw that debris ball over Noonan Crossing, I'm like, this may be Beauregard all over again. Yep. To only have one fatality in Noonan that wasn't even related to the storm, it was a heart attack from a guy afterwards trying to get to somebody, that's remarkable. And I think everybody upstream, you included, play a lot in that and a lot in helping out there. I know I went from football to way off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
This is just one of them days we having a conversation. We can jump all over the place. It doesn't matter.
I got you. It's kind of the first conversation we've had, too, so we're sitting here chewing the fat and kind of introducing each other. But back to football, I love being up here. I love the fans are great. They're passionate about their sports. Wadley, Southern Union, you got all the big schools there. I went to Randolph County, actually, for a playoff game a few years ago. It was Black Friday. And I promise you it wasn't Thanksgiving leftovers. It was fresh food. I mean, we had the best spread. They took us to a building. That's the best spread I've ever had at a high school football game. Southern hospitality is not dead if you come up here to Randolph County. I promise you that. And guys are salt of the earth here, and love being able to help serve.
One of the things, the two things the main thing I miss the most about being in radio. I love weather coverage, and I love high school football. I do play-by-play, and for years, I worked for the radio station down in Roanoke, and we did a game of the week, and so we would go from either Hanley, Wadley, Woodland, or Wedowee, depending on where the big game was that week, and cover high school football. And that was one of the things that I miss the most is the food. Yeah. I mean, my goodness, I can remember coming to Woodland. This was back during Coach Strain days at Woodland. We always had steaks. I mean, they would fix steak. I ain't talking about Waffle House steaks. I'm talking about these some steaks now. And
so that
yeah, and Larry's mama would always fix us a cake, and some good eating. Over in Wadley, we always had some good food as well. Miss Ellen Sims and her sister would always bring us some good food over there. Wedowee always took care of us at Randolph County, and Roanoke did too, because they all get out in the parking lot and cook down there before the game. So we just kind of had a smorgasbord of everybody's food down there.
Funny story about that.
Yeah.
When we assign games, just real quick before we get back to you, people actually got mad one week at me when we assigned games to the different crews, people in our association, and people actually get ticked off for working like an Auburn Opelika game. They're working like a big 7A game, biggest schools in the state. They're not going to Hanley because Larry Strain and them still cook that steak. They still get that steak at Hanley this thick at halftime, so they'd rather come work a Hanley high school game than be on a 7A stage. I mean, that's how great the hospitality is here. That just speaks volumes to the cut of people here.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, love doing high school football, and of course we get back into football season. I do weather for the iSchool Sports Network, which now covers all of the county schools in Randolph County on Friday nights. They stream the audio and the video now. COVID kind of forced them to start doing the video, and that's working out well. And I do my iSchool Sports weather forecast going into every game. And then, as you saw when you were at the stadium, when you and Walter figured out who I was kind of through Walter. So I watch radar for them on Friday Night Football and kind of talk to them in their ear and keep them updated on where the storms are. And in the event that they go into a storm delay, then they can switch to me, and I can show where the storms are and what's going on and how long we expect to be in a storm delay at that particular venue. So, technology's pretty cool, dude, these days.
Yes,
It all hinges on that internet service. As long as you can keep internet service, then things are pretty cool. And we can do some pretty cool stuff with modern technology nowadays.
Yep. Well, now I know if I go to Wadley or Henley for a game, I can keep my phone at home. I don't have to worry about that. Everywhere else, I got my little radar scope and lightning detector going. Now I know if I'm up here, Dr. Don's got you covered, so I love that.
Absolutely. Dana, we want to thank you for coming by and spending some time with us. More than welcome to hang out and do another break or two if you want to. I know you've got some obligations to take care of this afternoon.
And football,
actually, well, can you talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, we actually have some spring ball as semi-pro football, and we have the APDFL. We've had the pleasure of being picked for the APDFL, the Amateur to Pro Developmental Football League. Say that 5 times fast. Really? Championship between Mississippi and Florida. They're coming to Cartersville, Georgia. Don't ask. I don't know why. I think it was just a venue thing, kind of a maybe halfway. I'm not sure about halfway, but we're heading up there 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. Central Time kickoff, so I'm heading there after my stop here, picking up a guy in Roanoke, actually, and we're blasting on over to Georgia to cover that. So been blessed to do that, love doing that, and, kind of just it's exercise without knowing you're exercising out there doing some football officiating, so get a little chance to scratch the itch and do that tonight.
Absolutely. That's kind of cool. You and I both have a lot in common because I get – you sound like you're kind of like I am. You get bored with things, certain things you get bored with them kind of easy, and you find something else to do that's kind of exciting and new. And over the years of being that way, I've latched on to 4 or 5 different things, and I'm going to hang on to now, from emergency management to public safety to weather and to television and radio broadcast as well. Because let's face it, like Facebook, don't like Facebook, YouTube, social media, whatever. It's here to stay, yes. And it has grown into a great medium, a great way to reach a lot of people really quick, especially in life safety situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing about social media is two-way communication. So if you don't have an understanding of what's going on, you can ask us to clarify, and we can help you out. Back in the day, it was one way. It was you turn the TV on, no way you could talk to them unless you picked up the phone and called somebody at the studio, which usually wasn't there. So it's great to interact. I love that. Do the Q&A. Some people get totally ticked off when you're like, what about Woodland? What about Roanoke? What about Wedowee? What about Wadley? What about?
But what about Club?
Yeah, I don't mind answering that. I would answer that till the cows come home. I don't mind doing that because I like getting hyper local. I like, being able to tell that story for you. So, being able to do that on social media opens up a whole new way of interaction. And some people embrace it, some people don't. It's a love-hate kind of thing, but it's mainly more love on my side, and I'm sure on yours too.
Yeah, absolutely. I love every minute of it. My producer Tracy, she picks on me all the time because when I go live, normally, especially if it's in the evening hours after I've worked all day, and I get up about 4 o'clock every morning too to get the morning forecast out before 8 o'clock strikes, because then I have to switch hats and do the EMA thing throughout the day. So, when I'm going live at 8 or 9 o'clock at night or even into the overnight, it's already been a long day. So I'll tell her, look, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to do a quick break. I'm going to jump in here right quick and at least show them what's going on across the area. I'm going to do about 10 minutes. I'm going to be done. And an hour and a half later, I'm still going. Yeah, but there's a reason for that, because we love what we're doing.
Exactly. When there's severe weather coming in throughout the area, I'll go and pop a radar scope on my meteorologist page, and I'll, have that going. I'm just going to be a few minutes, but then I end up tracking it from Auburn all the way to the other side of Georgia, where we still got people that are watching us. So, yeah, we're cut from the same cloth, I think, when it comes to weather and comes for the love for it. And, back to what Span says, servant's heart. Do it with a servant's heart. Do it for the people, and do it because you love the people and you want to get the message out and help them.
Absolutely. All right, so we will be back in a few minutes, and we'll talk a little bit more with Dana, and we'll give you a chance to come by. Here's the deal. You got to come by and register if you want to possibly leave with a Dr. Don T-shirt. These are brand new shirts that we just got in a couple of weeks ago, and the only way you're going to get one, though, is if you register. And Miss Tracy should be back from lunch here in just a few minutes, and we'll start back with drawing for those T-shirts, and we'll give away some more shirts this afternoon. As you look at the radar, you can see that we still have those showers up there in Carroll County. And that thing is drifting off to the northeast up there around Carrollton. Maybe a few more showers down in the southwest part of the county developing, and still holding on to a few showers in southeastern Hurd, back up in northeastern Troup County as well. But maybe a few showers to the east of Columbus, and then you got to go way down into southeast Alabama, down into the Wiregrass from Union Springs all the way down to Newville down there. I believe that's Coffee County, or very close to it, down there just south of Abbeville. And then some pretty big storms popping up down in South Alabama, south of Evergreen, south of the I-65 corridor, all the way back down to around Crestview and Definiak Springs. That's another one of those that somebody that's not from this area would totally butcher. Yep. Defunky Springs or something. What? We're having a good time, folks. Come hang out with us. We'll be here for a little while longer at the New Hope Volunteer Fire Department. Their annual turkey shoot is underway on Dr. Don's Weather. Y'all come hang out with us.